Thank you so much. Next up, we have Tanya, and who is no guest to Sarasavi. She's been with us for so long, and just like her illustrious career, she's been with Sarasavi all along, and even as a part of our reading group. So, Tanya, welcome, and it's great to have you on this World Book Day.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarasavi, and hello everyone. Good afternoon. World Book Day. The theme for World Book Day this year is read your own way, and I think it's really important to reading is a very personal thing, and we read in many different ways. You know, some of us read at night, some of us read in the bath, some of us read on the train. I like reading aloud, even when I don't have a captive audience like you guys. So because I like the way that the story and sentences roll and play with them. So I'm going to start off start off at the beginning really, and try not to give too much away in this book. In this bit we see Sunila, who is the heroine of this. She's the reluctant hero of this book. As she scattered the grain around the yard, a movement caught her eye. Looking up, Sunila saw a hooded figure enter the lane. The slight silhouette scurried furtively between the tiny terraced homes and silently slipped into her sister's garden. Sunila knew instinctively that it was Lalita, her niece. What was she doing up so early, and where had she gone all alone? She wondered if someone in their house might be ill, but even then, she knew Lalita would never be allowed to leave the house on her own. If the doctor was needed, her sister or brother-in-law would have gone, or if they were unable, they would have sent the small son, Priyangwada, to Sunila's house for help. Lalita would never be sent. Young girls were never sent on the streets alone. Young girls, that is, from decent families. Sunila recalled her dead father's words when she had once protested at not being able to walk to town to meet her friends. Young girls are precious jewels of a family. They are valued and protected. Kept locked away at home, we do not throw our jewels into the street for other people to snatch and abuse. Where could Lisa gone? It was obvious from the way she stole into the house that the family had no knowledge of her being away. Sunila felt an icy trickle of dread weave its way into the pit of her stomach. Her mind automatically tried to soothe it. The girl probably went to see her best friend, Malisha, in the next street, just as a one-off. Sunila remembered a recent argument between Lalita and her mother when they were making roti together. Amma, Malisha has invited me to go to her house tomorrow. Absolutely no way, Lalita. Your father would not allow it, and neither will I. Her sister Pushpa had dismissed the request without even letting Lalita finish. But why, Amma? We're not doing anything. We're just going to sit in Malisha's room. And do what? Her sister had spun round to face her daughter, who shrank back and looked at the floor. Nothing, she mumbled weakly. Just talk and listen to music, maybe? You think you have time to talk and listen to music? Pushpa shouted at her daughter, grabbing her shoulders roughly with flour-covered hands. You should be thankful that I am still letting you go to school at your age. Your father thinks that you are old enough to stop school and find a husband. Any time you have should be spent learning how to keep a house and feed a family. Conversation had reminded Sunila of the one she had had with her father. She tried to come to aid her niece. Oh, come on, Pushpa. Why not let the girl go and see her friend? She's a good child. You trust her, don't you? Alita's a good girl. She's never disobeyed you or given you reason to worry. Sunila gently pulled the tearful Lalita away from her mother's clutches. We were all young girls once, Pushpa. Don't you remember us also wanting to be with our friends? Pushpa glared at Sunila for the apparent undermining of her authority. Yes, I remember, but father would not allow it, just as I am not allowing it for good reason. Good girls should not waste time hanging around with friends, because it leads to no good. The songs you will listen to will be love songs, the books you will read will be romances, and you will talk about boys and love and things that you know nothing about. Girls who get these stupid ideas in their heads think that they can have boyfriends and find love on their own without following the culture They bring shame to the family, ending up with unsuitable boys and having miserable lives. You cannot see this at your age, Lalita, but we can. Pushpa shot her sister another arm and she continued. That is why we have these rules. Buoyed by her aunt's defense, Lalita had again tried to argue for her request, but it ended up getting a slap across the face for her defiance. After the initial shock had silenced her, she had run from the kitchen crying. Then Pushpa had turned to Sunila. Why do you undermine me in front of my own daughter? You know how headstrong she is, and now she's a teenager, she's getting worse. But she isn't doing anything wrong, Pushpa. She's only openly come to you and asked permission to do something so innocent. At least she's a good girl. You know the parents. Where's the harm? I don't understand why we blindly follow old-fashioned rules that keep our girls confined and repressed. We know what it feels like, and yet we do the same to them. Why can't we change things for the better for them? Because there is no better for them, Pushpa laughed in derision. Just as there was no better for us when we were growing up. But it doesn't have to be that way for Lalita. She's a bright, intelligent girl. The world has other options for her. Education, career maybe. These were around when we were growing up, but they weren't acceptable for ordinary women like us. Now they are. A necessity even given how tight money is for most families. Sure, teaching our girls some independence from home is a good thing. Sunila knew she was losing a fighting battle. As the oldest sister and matriarch of the family, Pushpa's ways were steeped in tradition. Change was something not to be encouraged. It is exactly because Lalita is, as you say, bright and intelligent that I prevent her from mixing with other girls. She's impressionable. You see how she tries to wear her hair in different ways, and how she tears fashion model pictures out of old magazines when she gets from other girls. She hides them for me, but I catch her looking at them and pretending to pose. The other day I caught her with a lipstick. And I know, and I see the look she gets from some of the other women in the street, and worse than men. Before she becomes a bad girl, I need to break that spirit that used to be so highly. You do not have these problems yet. Asha is still small. When she comes of age, I think we'd speak very differently about all this system. It hurt Sunila that Pushpa would think she would treat Lalita differently to her own daughter. Even before she had Asha, Sunila had adored Lalita as though she were her own. Lalita had always confided in her heart and told her things that she could never divulge to her mother, who was always quick to dismiss her. Sunila sympathized with the young girl's aspiration, harmless yearnings that were the rites of passage for any young woman. Sunila herself was born too, yet unlike her older sister Pushpa, who had accepted and even embraced the demure life of a homemaker, Sunila always felt that there was something else she should be doing. I always wanted to be a policeman, woman. She laughed and confided this to Lalita. Maybe a fighter pilot. I used to run down the lane with my arms outstretched and dive bomb the boys' cricket games. Wow, a police woman. That's so cool, Lalita would ask. Did you ever ask your father if you could join? People didn't hear of it. I mentioned it once and he just laughed. He asked me why I wanted to be that, and I told him I wanted to get rid of badness in the world. He told me the best way I could do that was to become a good mother and a wife, making peaceful homes, bringing up good children, and creating law-abiding citizens for the future. Anyway, I was serious. It was just a childhood fantasy. Plans weren't real. Even as she said it, there was something deep in the very fibre of her being that made Sunila balk at her words. Now, as she watched the dark figure slip into the garden, she assured herself that this was nothing serious. She trusted the girl. If she was in trouble, Sunila said that Lalita would come to her. Then, as quickly as she assuaged her fears, more arrived. The bilious feeling of dread arose in the pit of her stomach as she watched the beam of eerie blue light from Lalita's hand illuminate the girl's face. Lalita had a mobile phone. This was a luxury that only her father and the ill-equipped had as a ill-equipped necessity in his work and emergencies. None of the children in the lane had mobile phones of their own. As fast as the new years came, like a guilty child making excuses for its bad behavior, Sunila refused to accept them. Sunila had been brought up to believe that if you lived a simple moral life, misfortune would not befall you. Bad things happen to bad people. Sunila was not bad, and neither was Lanka, and yet, like the chickens in her yard, she now found herself overwhelmed with fear and anticipating the worst.
Thank you very much. Tanya, would you like to tell us something about this book in particular, Angampora Queen?
So Angampora Queen is it's about a reluctant hero, an ordinary woman who, it's something about she's quietly accepting her sort of very legal traditional life, and she learns of this dark secret that her niece Lanka has, and she gets pulled into having to rescue her niece, who's got herself into dangerous group of people. And she does this with Angampora. She unwittingly meets a man, an old mystical character, who tells her that she's more than this sort of traditional character, a mom and a wife that she thinks she is. She's trying to play a role, but actually she's is a role rather than her actual self. He tells her that she's come from a long line of Angampora warriors, and she doesn't believe him, but that's the vehicle that she uses to start. Angampora is this 2,500-year-old ancient martial art, and she uses that to try and rescue
Right. The book was also long distance preparation, and how do you? It was your words of wisdom, and how you deal with a topic like this. You can't just get into writing a novel like Angampora Queen without knowledge, without background. You cannot just wake up on one fine morning, sit down, and start writing at a rate about a book like this. A lot of work also goes into it.
Right. So there's a lot of research that sort of goes into it, and I did the research because I'm interested in martial arts, just out of interest. I love ancient knowledge systems. So I've always been interested in martial arts from my young days. I used to do karate. I did taekwondo, and I did kung fu, which was my favorite. Which never gets now, but I did. And I had a wonderful Chinese martial arts teacher who would actually learn from Bruce Lee from Vietnam. And so his ways of teaching were very much steeped in the old Chinese ways, or not about belts. It was about when you were good enough to move on to the next form or the next message, then you would move, and he would tell you. It was very much the guru system rather than the structure of sort of an education system. So you were being mentored by somebody, and they knew when you were ready to move on. So I was always interested in that. I then realized when I was working at British Council that there had been this ancient martial arts of Angampora that had been practiced here, but was then outlawed when the British became, when we were colonized by the British. It was outlawed. A few of the moves sort of ended up in traditional dance, Indian dance, but for the part of it, it was outlawed. And loads of people, there was a young photographer, as a record, who came in and was doing a cocktail book, and that's how I started to find out about it and wanted to know more. And then weirdly, I couldn't find out. There isn't very much on the internet about it. But I was very lucky. It was really weird. I had this first Christmas made in the house, and the guy who came to fix it saw the cocktail book and said, "Oh, my grandfather practices this. He does this. He's actually quite a well-known teacher." And that was how I met Karanapala, and went and spent months and months and months learning about Angampora through him. Still didn't realize I was going to put it into a book, but then suddenly this character of Sunila, this reluctant hero, came up, and so then the book started.
Yeah, there is rising enthusiasm in terms of learning martial arts and all that. If you look out, you see all kinds of people advertising that they are teaching karate and all that. But what we forget is the deep philosophical foundation behind it. It's not just that you just go punch kick, right? Because it's a whole lot, like somebody who knows martial arts would be the last person to come and fight with you, right? But then it has become a passion.
Yeah, so the whole idea, martial arts, the philosophy around those martial arts is, as my teacher used to tell me, is the martial and there's the arts. The martial is the form, it's like scales of music. You have to understand that underpinning of it before it comes an art. And as my teacher used to tell me, fighting is ugly. It's not nice, and generally most of the time, you think you know more than you actually know. You really don't know that much. You don't know that much to look like Bruce Lee and have those amazing pictures. He used to tell me, you'll know Charlie Angel. You'll know Charlie's Angel. You think you look like Charlie's Angel? You don't look like Charlie's Angel. You look ugly when you fight. You're ugly. Because fighting is ugly. It's violent. But it's interesting how you take violence and you use it to actually create a framework of non-violence. You use it to create something that's very empowering. And it's just the sheer knowledge of knowing that you have balance. It creates balance in the body. It creates balance around you in the way that you kind of, the lifestyle that you create through those ancient knowledge systems, those martial arts. That's what it's about.
And I find it very interesting that you've made a girl your protagonist here. So we keep on talking about the negative stereotypes of fairy tales that we keep on teaching our girls. The dancer in distress, and you wait for the Prince Charming to come and rescue, right? And then in Sri Lanka we cannot walk out in the roads and like somebody will come and try to be funny with you. I mean, if you're a woman, but taking public transport, you know the horror of it. It's not that you're going to hit every guy who's in front of you, but then this kind of empowerment is what we need. So you know that you don't have to, even the conductor can put you in such a terrible position in a bus. So how is it that I see it as something very empowering?
Yeah, so even in the book, that's one of the things Sunila says. Sunila actually says when she's told by Sudalia, by the guru, you're going to be my next student. And I always knew you were going to be my next student. And she says, me, I'm a mother of two, I'm 40 years old. And I'm a woman. And he says, Angampora doesn't discriminate. And when you read the text, that women and men, there were apparently great admirals and generals who were female, who led wars and were trained in Angampora, and were amazing teachers. So it's not just a male-dominated philosophy, it's men, women, children. Children could learn as long as parents gave them permission to learn. It didn't matter if you were or not. And I find that really interesting. 2,500 years ago, that was the philosophy that was used.
Anything else that you would like to share about this experience of the study that you had to do or the teaching?
No, I think as it's reading today, I think it would be good to
read more.
Yeah, I'm going to read some more if that's okay. So the next bit that I'll read for you is actually around, how are we doing? Okay, so I'm going to read you just a little bit. Okay, so this is where Sudalia, Sunila's teacher, actually reveals to her that she is an Angampora fighter. When she finished her tea, Sudalia had led her to a small altar nestled behind the shelter corners. In the center sat a golden Buddha headed with Buddha, downcast in meditation. To the left of the Buddha sat Lord Ganesh, the elephant-headed river of obstacles was fashioned from polished ebony. The right side of the Buddha was flanked by Priyangwada, the demon king, who was the master warrior of Angampora. Smaller statues of Lakshmi and Vishnu also inhabited the shrine. If you would be so kind, my dear, I'd like you to light this lamp for me so that we can pray for your niece's safety. Sunila was happy to do so. At last, a ritual which she was The lighting of the oil lamp, the lighting of the oil lamp to ask for help from the gods and from the Buddha was something that always gave Sunila comfort, even if the desired outcome did not come to pass. It was the releasing of control, the relinquishing of responsibility to a force that was greater than herself, that soothed her. Once a matter was placed in the lap of the gods, mortals like Sunila were absolved of its own. They were off the hook. The success or failure of the circumstance no longer had anything to do with them. This is the way people found relief from troubling times. Whispered Sugalia, as though reading my mind. But it is not the right way. The consequences of our actions are always our responsibility. There can be no other way. What we sow, so should we reap, said the Buddha. The gods may alleviate, they may guide, but our journey can only be taken by ourselves. As Sunila poured the oil into the lamp and gently laid the white wick into the center, leaving one end to protrude above the lid, she tried to ignore Sugalia's words. Taking the match from him, she struck one end and held its flame to the wick end. The flame caught, and as it absorbed the oil, it elongated to a long, high point, from which a thin black line of smoke snaked upwards. Rather than reducing itself to a stubby, leaf-shaped flame, normally burns from the lamps once the excess oil is burned away, this flame continued to hold its elongated shape. It continued to burn strongly above the other lamp lines until its wick was spent. As I expected, chuckled Sugalia, clearly pleased by what he saw. You are to be my next student, Sunila. Student? Me? Of what? Angampora? She laughed nervously. I don't think that's correct. I'm a woman in her 40s. I have 2 children. I'm not an Angampora Queen. And who says you can't be all these things? Why do we limit ourselves always? The old man sighed, shaking his head. But I'm a woman. I can see that, he muttered, shooting a sideways glance at her. Angampora is a way of life, not just a piece of hosiery. It doesn't discriminate, nor does it advocate discrimination of any kind. Man or woman, adult or child, it is a way of life that welcomes one and all. Sugalia led Sunila to one of the bookcases. Scanning the topmost shelves for a few moments, he reached up and pulled down a large, dusty tube. Smiling apologetically for its state, the old man blew a few times over the surface to shift some of the dust. A rainy plumes billowed into the air, and Sunila did her best to politely stifle a cough. Scheherazade the cat sneezed a couple of times, and flashing a look of annoyance at Sugalia, leapt off the table to find somewhere more amenable to lounge in. Sugalia motioned for Sunila to sit, and after looking through the book's yellow pages, opened it to an exquisitely coloured illustration, which she laid on the table in front of Sunila. The depiction of a battle scene filled every inch of the page. At the left and right sides, legions of warriors were running towards each other, their various weapons held high. The bottom of the page showed those who had fallen under battle. Decapitated heads and limbs lay in pools of blood, trodden underfoot as the battle raged on. In the royal blue skies above the carnage, gold-leafed angels were pitted against red and black demons in a heavenly war that replicated the earth one below them. In the center of the page, riding forth in a silver chariot, stood a stunning female warrior. Although she had often seen pictures like this before, Sunila had never in her life seen a female fighter. She knew it was a woman that she was looking at because even though the woman wore an ornately decorated chest plate, the artist had made sure that her breasts were very obviously apparent. There was no mistaking that this warrior was a woman. With her sword raised in front of her, she led the child against the enemies that fixed her. The beautiful white stallions that pulled her chariot had risen up onto their hind legs as though to shield their mistress from the barrels of arrows that were being fired at them. Sunila heard herself gasp at the beauty and the fierceness of the picture. She could not take her eyes off the female charioteer. She lightly touched the illustration with her fingers and instantly felt a surge of familiarity flow through her body. She did not know how, but she felt certain she knew this woman. She felt her, her life, her family, her exploits and pain. She knew it all. But how? Have you ever wondered why you're here, Sunila? Sugalia's voice broke away. She looked at him puzzled. Sunila shook her head and shrugged a little. These were not thoughts she entertained as a mother and a wife were roles clear. Motherhood and wifely duties are all very well, but they're what you do, Sunila. They're not who you are. Mother is a role you play, as is being a wife. It cannot be the thing that defines you. Surely you're more than that. Sunila tried to follow what Sudalia was saying, but she would not stop herself from turning to look at the picture. The drawer of the worry was too strong. Sudalia pulled his chair closer to her excitedly. What you're feeling when you look at her is who you are. You are feeling your destiny, child. Sunila looked up startled. Sudalia continued unabated. Sunila, the universe does not operate by chance. Everything happens for a reason. There's a purpose for it all. You come from a long line of ancestors who were born to protect.
Anything else you would like to conclude with?
No, not really. I mean, just to say that hopefully this is going to be, I'm writing two more of Sunila because I think she's a great character. There were some other great characters in the book, and I sent the first draft of the book out to a number of readers, just trusted friends who would read and give me some feedback. And it was really interesting, the feedback that came back. A lot of young adults, because it's an adult fantasy fiction, so there were a lot of young people who came back with wanting to know more about young characters, Sunila's sidekick, Kavita, and wanted to know more about her story, wanted to know what had happened to Lanka after her ordeal. So there are lots of different women at different stages of life going through their own journeys, and that's why I think it's quite pertinent that being this series, read it your way, because I think in the book you've got a lot of characters who are doing things their way, but also blending in these sort of ancient Eastern knowledge systems that we have. So hopefully I'm going to take those, and there are going to be 2 more books come out at some point.
Great, that's news. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you, Sarasavi, and thank you everyone for coming.
Always pleasure.